A glance in the mirror. Chapter 46. Sotogrande. It seemed to Terry like a good idea for Anna to learn flamenco dancing. This would teach her all about local customs and improve her Spanish language whilst joining in a fun activity. It would also help her to get to know other young people in and out of the school environment and help become socialized. One of the things he wasn't able to learn was all those things you learn from your mother's knee: nursery rhymes, local customs, group history, the patois and manners. Being with other young people, partaking in a local custom and absorbing their culture would give some insight and knowledge about such things, at least make some effort to integrate and conform. She joined the class in San Roque and later on in Casares, continuing her lessons for much of her stay in Spain. She had a classical outfit, shoes and castanets to match all the others in the class who were taking in part of the exhibition before the parents. It was enjoyable for Terry too, and a good excuse to walk round the town in the evenings with Ruff, watching and listening to the local Spaniards taking in the sights and sounds, whilst having a cup of coffee, waiting for Anna to finish her lessons. It was so romantic to walk past the open doorways of a truly Spanish town. Without appearing to be nosy, you could look in the open doorways and see the people all sitting at the dining room table, engaged in conversation. The televisions would be on, and the smell of the cooking drifting out into the warm evening air. Bats flying and cicadas chirruping as the village dogs barked in the distance. This was his routine throughout the years Terry took Anna to her dancing lessons. It was during this period that Anna had to attend summer school to keep up with the others in her class, and this took 2 weeks out from her summer holidays. Terry wasn't sure that Anna's education assessment by the Spanish Embassy in London would be accepted by the school authorities. The school pressed us to get this assessment locally validated, and this meant going to the Cadiz education authorities. Terry and Anna drove to Cadiz to find the head of education for the Malaga province, who did kindly append his signature to Anna's assessment, which made the document accepted as official. And what a relief that was! Each year Anna's work became more and more difficult. Each student had to stand up in front of the class and explain the current problems to the others to show that they fully understood the other subject. Anna also had to take written Latin and grammar for the first time, and both these things forced her to be more confident and assured, quite difficult for a 15-year-old to achieve. At her age, Terry was starting work in a factory and couldn't possibly have been so strong in character or so well educated. It's important to say that Terry knew Anna fully appreciated her need to work hard. She also knew that trying to fit into a macho, male-dominated society would be difficult and stressful. However, she appeared to be happy and contented at home, which was the main thing. A year later, Anna insisted on completing her education in Spain, when Josephine was forced with the possibility of having to go back and work full-time in England. Terry was amazed that she had such foresight and logic to rationalize where her best interest lay, and she wasn't to be proved wrong. Much of Josephine's work was advising GPO and paper workers how best to plan for their early retirement. Group lectures were arranged with Keith Allen, helping Josephine interview clients. They formed a relationship built up over a number of years, travelling together to service their clients, and it's little wonder that they were a tight-knit team. It wasn't long before Terry started altering the front garden and drive. Wrought iron gates were ordered and hung, and a natural stone drive laid. The garden borders planted up with azaleas, lavender and laurel, whilst a pergola was built to form a covered way from the house to garage, giving cover to a fountain beneath. He contacted a local garden centre for their advice, showing them the plans he had drawn out. They wrote out a list of trees and shrubs suitable for each part of the garden, advising that he should dig in a suitable topsoil. The plants were ordered and the soil delivered to build up and decorate the borders. Anna had to go to the dentist to check whether she should have some wisdom teeth out, to give the others room to grow. His diagnosis was that she should have 4 out as soon as possible. Thankfully, Anna was keen to have this done, so Terry didn't have to do any persuading. Had she known how painful it was going to be, and what a struggle the dentist was going to have, she might not have been so understanding. She was to have 1 wisdom tooth out each month, a trial she undertook without any complaining, beauty over hardship giving the incentive. Josephine, although based full-time in Spain, was still flying backwards and forwards to London to tie up loose ends every 3 weeks. During her time there, she would often drive past a cottage in Papri, which had a for sale sign outside. This was within 5 miles of College Farm, in an area she was well familiar with. Hermitage Cottage was a charming, detached, thatched residence with Gothic-style windows close to the A413, which gave easy access to Aylesbury. She bought it quickly and made it her base for the next 2 years. It was also a convenient place where Helen could spend vacations while still at college. She was lodging with a family close to her school, and found it a break to be with her mother on her regular visits to London. After taking a trip to Algeciras to buy some school books, Anna and Terry discovered on their return the car had been broken into. Thieves had removed the radio by breaking the front side window. The car was less than 6 months old, and they were advised to have a poor quality one fitted in its place to deter thieves from doing the same thing again, and after that they were never able to play any tapes in their car again. Since his first days in Spain, Terry had been trying to get his full residencia, a license of residence used for identification purposes. Terry made many visits to the local abogado, filling in numerous forms obtained at the tobacconist's shop, which served as the government's outlet for official documents. Eventually he achieved this small hurdle, which made him feel considerably more qualified and committed to Spain. This also helped him when dealing with local services and educational authorities. Hill Samuel sent out David Culshaw, a director in Jersey, to assess the potential of the area and the viability of working from Sotogrande or Marbella. These meetings continued on and off for all of that autumn 1987, and then into the early part of 1988. Unfortunately, Hill Samuel by this time had lost their way. Gradually they became less committed to the idea. Factors both within the institution and in the greater world of finance took their toll. Their enthusiasm dwindled. Kerry Packer sold the Hill Samuel Company that year, selling the shareholdings to the Trustee Savings Bank. Now, having the capital, it allowed him to link up in 1989 with Sir James Goldsmith and Jacob Rothschild to buy Ranks Hovis McDoodle. Later the same trio made a failed $3 million bid for Bat Industries. The indecisions and intercompany factions began to be felt. The world's stock markets were just passing their peak, and the slowdown in building development was becoming very daily apparent. The Hill Samuel management decided to install David Culshaw from their offside banking group in Jersey, part of the Switzerland bank Van Ernst, to head up the team in Spain to try and reinvigorate the area potential. This move bypassed Josephine. It transpired that this Swiss bank was taking over in Jersey, making some redundancies. Placing one of their employers, a relative, helped Hill Samuel head office from paying an extra salary or redundancy payout. It was an unkind, thoughtless and despicable act, after giving Josephine such a build-up, promoting her, then removing support, especially when her family was having to be uprooted. It was also demeaning for the new manager, who wasn't qualified in financial services or conversant with the latest products, having to rely upon Josephine to guide him through. Whether or not it was this act which led to the eventual breaking up of Hill Samuel in Spain is debatable. However, it certainly undermined the progress that had been made and slowed up making more contacts. This was right at the end of the boom period. There were only a few months left before the bond market crash to write off several sufficient businesses to tide Hill Samuel over during the financial downturn and to show what was possible. In the depression which followed, clients in southern Spain needed a knowledgeable service agent to hold their hand to see them safely through the dark period. And during the autumn break in 1987, Anna had a bank holiday, so Terry decided to make a change for her by motoring up to Ronda, high up in the mountains, the western side of Malaga province, via Algeciras, instead of taking the back route through Gauthin. It is an inspiring place, and they visited it many times afterwards. However, this time, on the first visit, they set off on a fine day, with Ruff as usual sitting on his lap. The route was pleasant to drive, being undulating, with many twists and turns, all the time gradually rising up from the coastal plain towards the Sierra de Cadiz, 2,000 feet above sea level. After a watering stop they set off again, with all the windows down, for it was now getting on for midday. In the distance Terry saw a moving mass coming towards them in the middle of the road, and this turned out to be a group of cyclists with all their individual racing colours, creating a visual vibration, which in time the individual's form became apparent. This clutch of moving objects, which set up its own increasing tone of sound, a hum, started to affect Ruff, who was beginning to get excited. As the pedal-pushing, side-swinging, grunting mass projected itself towards us, Ruff leapt out of the window. We weren't moving fast, well, not as fast as the group of cyclists, but the meeting speed was obviously considerable. Ruff landed just in front of the grunting mass, doing a forward roll, eventually making off with a dash. Terry, meanwhile, drew up to a halt, further on up the road, leaping out to sea to Ruff. The cyclists, seeing this furry thing shoot out of the car in front of them, swerved, some of them to the side of the road, others crossing over to the opposite side, and those coming behind didn't know which way anyone was going, but ploughed on. There was a lot of shouting, screeching, and shaking of fists, whilst Terry gathered Ruff up in his arms to propel himself into the car in one bound. Off with the brakes, down with the throttle. They took off. By now, their pulse rates well off the meter, having great difficulty suppressing their laughter.